Hello and welcome to everyone. We will get started in about 1 minute. Thank you for joining us. All right, let's get started. Hello and welcome. We are so glad you all chose to join us today for our webinar series, Learn with Lakeside. This is one of many that we will have throughout the year, covering a variety of topics in the publishing space. So thank you again for joining us. I am Brittany Lewis, Director of Marketing and Publisher Services. Here at Lakeside Book Company, we print, distribute, and fulfill books. We also help you sell and market them on Amazon. I'd like to introduce who's presenting our webinar today, Joseph Glorioso. Joseph is our subject matter expert on all things Amazon when it comes to selling your books. He has vast experience helping publishers of all shapes and sizes make the most out of Amazon, navigating the ins and outs, marketing, selling, ultimately reaching more people and making the most of your sales. He's been working in the book publishing space for 15 years, so we are super glad to have him. Thank you, Joseph, for leading today's webinar. A few things before we get started. There is a chat feature that is open and available. We encourage you to chat and engage and bring up topics and chat amongst everyone in the group. If you have a question, we will be taking questions throughout the presentation. So there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to submit a formal question, please do so using the Q&A button. Thank you again for joining us. And Joseph, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brittany. As Brittany said, I've been working in publishing for about 15 years now, and I'm really excited to get to be here to share some of my knowledge and experience with you and really get to talk about what I do with publishers every day. So I really fell in love with publishing back in 2007 when I started in that space. And ultimately, I went from working for a publisher to working for a Lakeside Book Company. And it's really exciting to get to share not just with one publisher, but get to help a lot of publishers sell their books, market their books, and build long-term strategies to make the most of their online presence. So thanks for being here. I am excited to get to tell you today about navigating Amazon specifically to sell your books. And what we're going to work through today is how we can maximize your selling potential on Amazon so that you can get the most out of the work that you're doing there. The reality is we know that selling on Amazon is challenging. We know that Amazon does not make it easy. They give us a lot of tools. They make a lot of things available to us, but ultimately they don't make it easy to know how all of their systems work, what the things that we need to be doing are to make everything work. So that's really what I hope to walk away teaching you today is how you can make these key areas of focus in your work so that you can maximize your book selling on Amazon and ultimately you're able to reach more people and get more selling out of Amazon. So as we look at this today, I really want to start and set the stage with some context of statistics that are just found on the web. And when you'll get the slide deck when all of this is over and these stats are in there and where you can read more about where these came from. But Ultimately, we know on Amazon, a lot of people are shopping there already, and a lot of you already have a presence there. And if you don't, this should solidify your need to sell on Amazon. And if you do, this will hopefully solidify your investment of time and energy and resources into selling on Amazon. So there are about 2 billion people estimated every single month that are using Amazon worldwide. So that's not just in the US, that's really worldwide. A lot of publishers, many of you have your books not just on Amazon in the US, but globally. So it's really important to understand there are a lot of people that could potentially see your books every single month. In the US alone, 74% of online shoppers start their online shopping journey with a search on Amazon. That is staggering, really, when you think about it. Amazon is maintaining maintaining more than 50% of e-commerce in the US right now. And that's groceries and books and everything ultimately. But when we really think about that, we know it's going to be key to get our products in front of those readers where they're shopping at. About 74.4 million US households have Amazon Prime. That's as of 2021. There's about 128 million US households. So that's a good portion of US households who have Amazon Prime. And sometimes they have multiple Prime memberships in one household, based on some stats that I saw. And that's expected to grow to about 76.6 million in 2022. So that's a really huge amount of households in our country alone that are using Amazon Prime regularly. And then 65% of the US population visits Amazon at least one time a month. So more than half of our country are visiting Amazon every single month. So when you think about that, there's huge potential there, and there's a lot of people that we can reach, but we have to be doing the right things in order to do that. So the question that I really want to answer as we go through this are just some benefits that you get from investing in your product pages on Amazon. What things are going to benefit you along the way? And really, there are 5 key things that we're identifying. There's a lot more than this, but ultimately, you benefit from Amazon's built-in audience. We know the audience is there. We know that shoppers are there. So why not invest the time and energy and resources into the place where people will be shopping? And then ultimately, you're going to be able to reach people you might not otherwise reach. Here's an example for you. Here in Clarksville, Tennessee, where I live, right outside of Nashville, there's about 220,000 people in our county, and we have one bookstore. That's a really interesting statistic. It's books a million. The limitations that they have on the amount of content they can carry is real. And you know that you have to make presentations to get your books in there, and they don't pick up everything, especially when you start getting into specialized areas of publishing, like in the religious space or in the Christian space and things of that nature. There's even less space available for you. So in a world where bookstores are decreasing in a lot of these cities, and 220,000 people is a lot of people to have one key place to buy books. I mean, there's Walmart, there's Target and things like that, but ultimately everybody has access to Amazon, no matter how many bookstores they have in their city or in their town or even near them. Your products are available to you where competitors are selling. Your competitors are selling on Amazon. We know that's happening. And a lot of publishers spend a lot of time investing in Amazon to take advantage of that built-in audience and to maximize their sales on that e-commerce platform. So the fourth benefit is that you can learn trends about your products, and there's great data that you can learn. Through brand analytics, you can learn about your sales history alone. Is it improving? Is it declining? Through reviews, you can learn about what people love about your products, what might need to change. There's a lot of different ways that you can engage with the data on Amazon, and especially when you start introducing your storefronts, potentially if you're using those, or if you're introducing Amazon advertising into your mix, then you have a lot of data available. What terms need to be added to your product titles or to your descriptions or to your A+ content to make your products more discoverable and ultimately lead people to convert into a purchaser. So there's a lot of data that you can get. And while the data is limited still, you can still learn from demographics. You can still learn from what's working in your books. And that can even help you shape and shift your publishing strategy across the board if you choose to do so. And then finally, you get your books into the hands of more readers. If you're going to where a built-in audience is, if you're maximizing your pages, if you are optimizing your work, on Amazon and taking advantage of the levers that Amazon makes available for you to pull, then ultimately you're going to have more readers purchasing your books. And that's really what you want to happen there. So what is the one thing that you should do to grow your sales on Amazon? The reason that we have to understand the answer to this question is because really there's not one single thing that you can do that will miraculously make your sales on Amazon grow. You might have books that come out of the gate hot and new release cycles. And ultimately that could be happening because of a lot of off Amazon marketing. But ultimately, if you're wanting to continue to have a long-term tail of growth on Amazon, then what you're really going to have to do is focus on pulling all of the different levers, doing multiple things that Amazon makes available to you. And really, we've created this wheel that we use when we work with publishers to really help them see that there are many different things that you need to be doing. There's not one thing, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of areas to focus on. And ultimately, every single one of these things is interconnected. And as they're interconnected, every single one of these things working together will drive sales growth ultimately. So we're going to dive into many of these different categories and cover them in different sections. But as we move into that, I just want to take a second and answer a quick question that came in from Judy. She said, is there a recording that you can share the link to? I can only stay on the live event for a few moments. There actually will be some recordings that go out. That's already in the chat, I see. But just to let you know, there will be a recording of this event that you may be able to see. So hopefully that answers that question for you. One of the first things that we think about when we're wanting to grow our sales on Amazon and maximize our book selling potential is really getting engagement to our product pages. So product page engagement is key on Amazon. Ultimately, the more clicks that you have on your products, that is going to increase your engagement. Customer reviews, that shows increased engagement. Customer purchasing patterns, that shows increased engagement. And ultimately, this page engagement is going to be key for you. And having this engagement on your page is essential, because if you don't have people engaging with your page, then that means your sales rankings are going to be lower. And as your sales rankings get lower, it's going to be harder for people to find your products. So if people aren't engaging, if people aren't shopping and finding your products in their search list, if they're not clicking on it from an ad or from organic search discoverability, then ultimately your products are going to continue to suffer and continue to drop in that search list at the end of the day. So reviews are really helpful because they start to tell people why they should buy your products. Or in some cases, they're going to be telling people why they shouldn't buy your products. And I think this is just a really great thing for us to use to our advantage, because if you have a book that's getting continuous negative reviews, you have opportunities to go back to re-release a new edition or something of that nature and really focus on updating the product to deal with these issues that customers are continuously having with your product. So if you have a book that you think is going to be a bestseller, and there are just these complaints that are happening, especially when you're getting into situations of quality or situations where there are people complaining about the way the lines are spaced in the text, or how hard it is to read the font, or how pages are sticking together. And if you have products that are gilded, how the gilding is messing up. Then ultimately you have opportunities to shift your focus on those products and change things up. So use that to your advantage, use that engagement from customers to your advantage so that you can really improve your products. And don't overlook reviews. I think that's something that often happens ultimately. And it's not because they're not there or because publishers don't care about the reviews, but it's ultimately because there are reviews that are happening and we're just not paying attention a lot of times to what's going on in those reviews. So if you use the reviews to your advantage, especially when they're coming in, use good reviews to help build products for the future, use bad reviews to help know what needs to shift and what needs to change and when you need to re-release a new edition to protect your sales from tanking as a result of quality or product complaints. And ultimately, you do have product data that's available to you. We know that in brand analytics, you can do a lot of different things there. Some of my favorite reports look at shopper abandonment, how many people are looking at your page, but then not purchasing. So you're really starting to look at those conversion rates and figuring out, are people getting to my page, reading the right information to know why they need to buy my product? And the second thing about conversion rates that I think is really important is you can start to see a decline in conversion rates if that's happening, and you can start addressing that page. We're going to talk about creating good book metadata in a moment. And the thing about good book metadata is that it's not constant. Your book metadata can shift and change over time. And if you have thousands of titles in your catalog, that can be really overwhelming. But I think conversion rates really help you figure out what titles do I need to focus on first. If my conversion is declining for a title, if my sales trends are declining and I have a higher attrition rate than I normally would on a backlist title, what can I do to reverse that and get this title back at the top of the search list and get people purchasing? And then you can look at your market basket analysis. This is really helpful, again, because ultimately what you're going to see is people look at your page and then they looked at alternative pages and maybe purchased alternative things. So then if they look at your page, you can see the number one thing they purchased, the number two thing that was purchased, and it kind of ranks those out for you across so many titles. So really use all of these reports and this data to your advantage to help start driving your path forward and changing the direction that you might be going on. So the data is helpful because it really gives you clarity on what steps to take next. So page engagement is key. And shopper engagement and product demand, driving people to your products, purchasing your products, those ultimately are going to have those direct impacts on your sales rankings. And as your product demand and engagement increase, your sales rankings are going to improve. But if your sales rankings are declining, that's generally because people aren't purchasing your product. You're getting a lot of negative reviews, and your product is just driving down into the search result list. So engagement is really important for your products to keep them at the top of that list and to keep people purchasing them. So another key thing for discoverability is inventory. And while there's not a lot that you can do in terms of inventory on Amazon, in terms of getting Amazon to necessarily order everything you want them to, that's always a key frustration for publishers. Ultimately, running out of inventory will kill your momentum every single time. And if you have a new release that is just blowing out of the warehouse, it's just moving really fast, and then you run out of inventory on Amazon because you didn't have enough inventory in their warehouse because they didn't order enough due to the fact that they didn't see enough customer demand and engagement on your page, or because they just didn't have enough pre-orders happening to make it visible to them that they needed to place those orders necessary, then ultimately you're going to lose that sales ranking because you've lost that momentum. And as that sales ranking decreases again, you lose that discoverability. So I really believe you as publishers and we as a team can work to help proactively approach your inventory by looking at key releases, looking at key backlists to really ensure that you never run out of stock on Amazon, because you don't want to lose that momentum. You don't want to lose that discoverability. So you keep your products moving, you keep them selling by building an inventory strategy that always keeps your product in stock. So use brand analytics to your advantage. Again, a tool that Amazon gives you right within your vendor account where you can look at your inventory and you can begin to see Amazon is forecasting your sales. They're saying, hey, this much demand is showing us that there's going to be this many sales for 50 weeks out or something like that. Ultimately, you may not trust Amazon's forecasting, but if you think a title should have 3,000 units moving in the first day that it's out, and Amazon only shows that you're going to sell 20 units in the first day it's out, that means that you have this problem with customer engagement and customer demand on a new release that you need to begin addressing immediately. And that should also drive you to looking at Amazon's inventory. And then from there, ultimately what you're going to be able to do is begin forecasting your sales and looking for those appropriate solutions to ensure you never run out of stock on Amazon. So for instance, Amazon now offers a Born to Run program for vendors. So what you can do there, as an example, is you can go into Amazon and create a listing of your new releases and strategically recommend they order XYZ number of units for a particular product. Now, the downfall is you don't want to go in there and go crazy and get them to order 20,000 units of something, because what will Amazon do? they'll begin giving you chargebacks, they'll begin giving you returns. And those are two things you don't want to abuse, because if you get a lot of chargebacks, then you make no money on your book sales. But if you start getting a lot of returns, then that's going to impact your ability to participate in that Born to Run program. But use that to your advantage, because ultimately what will happen is you can strategically tell Amazon, you need more inventory on this product. They normally place a purchase order within 24 hours of you submitting that request. And from there, they're going to pick those books up. And that helps you ensure that you never run out of stock on a new release. Amazon has POD available through Kindle Enterprise Publishing, or some of you might be using KDP. There are availabilities for POD there that you can turn those POD solutions on. And when a product runs out of stock, Amazon will start using POD until their inventory is replenished. So you keep that momentum going and your book never runs out of stock. And then you have a vendorship. Some vendors have opportunities to receive orders from Amazon when their product goes out of stock, and they ship them out of their own warehouse within Amazon's requirement and guidelines. And then we actually offer Lakeside Book Merchant, which is our unique solution to ensuring you never run out of stock on Amazon. And ultimately what we do is we bring some of your inventory into our warehouse, an amount that you set, and we, through a third-party seller account, create a listing for your product. And when your buy box gets turned off because you might be out of inventory, we then take over that buy box and keep your product moving so that you never run out of stock and you never lose that momentum of your new releases. So there are multiple different approaches and tactics that you can take to selling your book. But what I would really recommend is that you develop a strategy for reviewing every single new release and every key backlist on a regular basis to ensure that Amazon never runs out of inventory and you don't lose sales. The next thing that we'll talk about, let's look if there are any questions here. It looks like there's one. Someone asked, what do you need to do to get brand analytics? Well, it really depends on the vendor account that you have to answer that question. And ultimately, Amazon uses brand analytics instead of just your normal reporting platform. So their ARA basic platform, they use brand analytics as a way to negotiate an additional point of discount or however much it may be. But ultimately, you have to negotiate that into your contract during contract negotiations as a vendor. If you're using Seller Central, you really don't get brand analytics, but you get seller metrics that you can use along the way to look at the inventory, but you're controlling all of that inventory anyway. So that's not really going to be dependent upon Amazon. But if you're a vendor and you're using Vendor Central, you're using Advantage, then ultimately what you're going to be able to do is negotiate that brand analytics into your contract with your vendor rep when that time comes. Now, I know you probably don't have vendor reps. Most people don't have those. But when it's time for them to negotiate more discount from you, you will have a vendor rep temporarily. So I would say open a case with Amazon, attempt to negotiate that brand analytics into your contract if you don't already have that. Another thing that I would say is, what are your permission levels in your organization? Ultimately, your organization, if there's someone else who owns your Amazon account, they may not have given you the appropriate privileges to be able to view Amazon brand analytics. So you might have it, and it might be dependent upon your organization to give you the appropriate accesses to be able to do that. Another question just came in that says, do you need to have a vendor account to have a publisher page? You do have to have a vendor account to have a brand storefront, if that's what you're asking specifically. Vendor accounts are required in order to be able to have those, but you can build out a store in Amazon third-party, in the Amazon third-party selling marketplace. And you can also create an author page that will include all of your products if you are a self-published author that's using that platform. So I know we have some people in here that are doing that as well. So the next thing that we're going to be covering is really merchandising and discoverability. So when we start thinking about our product pages, we have a limited amount of control over what's there in terms of the layout, but we do have the ability to influence what the page looks like a lot. So merchandising and discoverability are important because they really go hand in hand. You merchandise your page by having quality metadata. You merchandise your page by taking advantage of the tools that Amazon has, and you ultimately improve your discoverability by taking advantage of the merchandising tools that are there. So what you want to do is get people to your page, but you also want to be getting the right people to your page so that your page leads to conversion. But once they're there, you need to have all the right tools, all the right things done so that they choose to buy your product instead of essentially saying, we're not going to buy this product because there's not enough information, or I really don't know what's going on there. And this can be unique to Amazon because generally as publishers, we're writing back cover copy that explains what our books are about or tells people why they should read our books. But ultimately, Amazon has trained consumers to look at their product pages in a different way. We're a culture of people who skim. So we need to have the right content in the right places, the right images in the right places, so that when people are skimming, we can essentially stop them and make them want to know more. So that's why titling, product descriptions, all of those things become really important, plus the indexing that's going to happen to make your page more discoverable along the way. So there are a lot of key factors into making your product more discoverable. And these are some key ones that we're going to talk about today. But the quality of the product detail page is one of those things. The price. So if you have a price that's higher than a lot of other people, that can really impact your ability to be discovered. The customer demand and engagement. So again, how many people are engaging with your product? How many people are buying your product? That's really going to impact your discoverability. Your customer ratings. So if you have a lot of one-star reviews, you're probably going to be making your way down the discoverability list really quickly. Product availability. If your product is out of stock and you lose that momentum from demand and engagement, then ultimately you're going to drop down that list. The return rate. How many people are returning your product back to Amazon? So if they're seeing a high number of returns themselves, then ultimately that's going to impact your ability to get your product discovered, because Amazon doesn't want returns. They don't want to give money back to people, just like you don't want returns from Amazon. So they're trying to minimize that along the way. Are your products eligible for Prime? Generally, if you're a vendor, your products are available through Amazon Prime. But if you're a seller, figure out the best way possible to get your products available through Prime. So do fulfilled by Amazon, do vendor shipping where you do your own Prime shipping. But there are a lot of requirements and it's very hard to get approved for that. And I'm hearing a lot of publishers right now saying that Amazon won't approve them for Prime shipping through their own warehouse at this point because they're not really onboarding more people to that. Amazon wants you to be toward that fulfilled by Amazon option a lot more. And then you have sales rankings, again, impacted by all of these things, the engagement, the demand. So you want to help the right people find your products ultimately. And the reason that's important is because Amazon has more than 12 million active product listings that they own. And when you consider seller listings through Amazon third-party sellers, there are over 350 million product listings. I actually read a new stat today that said 353 million products on Amazon. So it just keeps going. So how will your products rise to the top? It's really about building that quality data, getting demand to your product, driving that engagement there, and ultimately getting people to just keep going back to your page for reviews and getting it to the top of the list. So one of the first things that you can do when you are building your product pages is look at your product images. You have to have product images that make your title stand out in search lists. This is probably not new for a lot of you, but the reality is we don't always, as publishers, think about how our books are going to look, how they're going to be viewed when you're looking at them online. So think about high quality images, number one, but think about how eye-catching your cover can be. If you're doing a product search, you might have 50 products that you're competing with on that first page of results. You also have ads appearing at the top of the page that you're competing with. So you want to design covers that are going to pop off the page, that are going to capture attention, that are clear, that are easy to read, that really just illustrate the fact that people, in fact, do judge a book by its cover. We know that happens. So you have to have good book covers that are going to pop off the page. The second thing is looking at those looking at how the design can stand out for online shoppers specifically, because a lot of times in the publishing house that I worked for, we had a lot of products that had beautiful heat stamping. They might have some foil in there, they might have gilding, they might have ribbon markers, but that's really hard to communicate on Amazon. And sometimes you can have really high quality images, but you still can't see the design very well. So when you start thinking about your photography and the things that you're doing with your books, you really have to really begin to think about, how is this going to translate to an online shopper? It may look really good, it may work really well whenever you're inside of the store, when people can touch it and feel it and see all the design. But how can you communicate that through an online listing? I'm working with a publisher right now, and we're seeing that what I believe is one of the key issues that they're having with converting people to sales. They have beautiful covers, but when you look at the images online, they become really challenging to see the designs, and you miss the beauty of what the creative directors have really invested their time and energy in doing. They're aware of this. We've been talking about this as a potential barrier for sales, but you have to think about those eye-catching cover images, and you have to make sure that you're communicating that really great design that might work in person. But ultimately, the question just came in: how do 3D images of books fare versus just a flat cover? You can start with a flat cover image on your page, but ultimately adding all of those images into your carousel are going to be really important. So you have abilities to go into your vendor account, into Seller Central, and add multiple images to your product listings. So go in there and add as many images as possible. And from that, what you're going to see with those 3D images, they really will begin to stand out, because you can highlight the features of your book, especially if you're using any kind of treatments along the way, especially if you're doing, deckled edges or gilding or ribbon markers. So those 3D images really start to make that stand out. And they're really good, especially in children's book publishing or in the Christian trade space, where you start to look at very design heavy driven products. So I think that it can really make your product stand out against the grain of other publishers. So the other thing that I would say is add those supplemental images. I think I've already mentioned that, but you want people to see the outside of your products. You want them to see the inside of your products. You want them to see the spine of your product. You want them to be able to see the size of your product, depending on what you're publishing. Sometimes size doesn't matter that much in terms of your book, but if you're thinking about a coffee table book, for instance, you want people to see what that size might look like. So find ways to illustrate that for them so that they can see what they're going to be getting. If you're selling Bibles, for example, you want to make sure you're taking advantage of showing every single feature within your Bible so that people can see, what does the font size look like? What do the notes look like? What do the maps look like? What do the charts look like? What do the scripture definitions look like? You want to see all of these things highlighted in those photos as much as possible. You don't want to give away everything, but you want people to understand why they need to buy your products. So images are a key way to be able to do that. So that's where your 3D images come in and really become important. The next thing that we want to talk about is the title. The title of your book is a hook. And for publishers, you develop these titles, and you have strategies and you have reasons for developing titles that really represent your books well. Keep doing that, but ultimately don't stop there when it comes to Amazon. You want to make your title a hook. So you can use the book title and the subtitle, or the book title and a one-line descriptor of your book. You have up to 199 characters in vendor platforms generally. So you use those characters to your advantage. Take advantage of every single character placement that you have, because Amazon is indexing your title. And if you can use those keywords, those search terms that become really important for your book as a one-line, 2-second elevator pitch, essentially, for your book. Tell me in one short sentence why I need to buy this book, why this should capture my attention, why I need to go to your page, and use that to your advantage to help your title be more discoverable. But it then helps people click on your page and know why they need to click on it in the first place. So use your title. It is indexed. It does help your title become more discoverable. The next thing is your page description. You have the ability with your page descriptions, your product descriptions, to give people an understanding of your product. So what are the features? What are the advantages? What are the benefits of your book over the competitors? Why do I want to read this book? Why should I buy this book? So you've gotten them to the page. Your page has been discovered. The shopper's there. Now you want to convert them to a sale. But remember, they're skimmers. So you can use Amazon product descriptions to really begin to sell your book. And that's how you have to begin thinking about this. You're not just educating them on what the book is about, but you are selling that end consumer so that they will buy your product. So use your description with a first line that will capture shoppers' attention. You can bold that, you can use italics, you can do different things depending on the category of books you're selling. You might even be able to add bolding or colors and different fonts and things like that. I'm seeing some of that, especially in the coloring book space. There's a lot of different features there that people can use to make their books stand out. So then you're able to inform shoppers about your product with a short overview. So start with that first line that captures attention, jump into that product description with a short overview. I work with publishers sometimes who have 5, 6, 7 paragraphs of description and on their page. People are not going to read that. If they have to wade through 7 paragraphs to get to what your book is about, they're going to move on to something else because their attention is going to be captured by other products they might like, display ads that are showing up, different things on that page, or they're going to go right back to the search result list. So you want to get them there. You want to capture their attention. You want to tell them really quickly what the book is about. And if they say, yeah, I need this, then they're going to read more. Well, yeah, I love that feature. I have to have that. I need that. This book could change my life. And I might change the trajectory of how I sell things, or I might be going through some periods of depression and I just need amazing help. And this book is going to do that for me. So it's not just about describing your book like back cover copy. This is really about becoming the salesperson for your book. If you were sitting in front of the consumer and say, this is going to benefit you, this is going to help you, this is why you need this, capture that in the first line, give them that short overview, help them know why that your book, your product will benefit them, what features it has, and what other points will make your book stand out. You also have keywords that are available to you. So these are visible and hidden keywords. I mentioned this in the title earlier. Titles are indexed. Search inside the book is indexed. A+ content is indexed. And if you don't know what those things are, we'll talk about that. Or if you don't know why those are important, we'll talk about that in a moment as well. But ultimately, those visible key search terms that are there, and then those hidden keywords in your metadata are going to be essential in getting people to your product page. They're going to help you drive the right traffic to your product page. So use those keywords to help the right people find your products, but then recognize that your keywords are going to help your product improve in that search ranking. So if you want your products to improve in that ranking, then you need to get those keywords right. I heard in another webinar recently, or from another webinar recently, that keyword development is hard. It is, because everybody is developing keywords. So it's really important that you have a good strategy for developing keywords, data-backed sources that help you know what keywords are going to work. That's where your reviews can become handy. That's where ad keywords can become handy. You can really start to learn about your book from what people are saying about it through those reviews. And then you can put those key terms right back into your product descriptions, into your titles, things of that nature. It's really important, though, you don't just put as many keywords as possible. One, Amazon's put some limits on that for you. Depending on your platform, it depends on what your limits are. But then you also have the situation where you don't want the wrong keywords getting out there, because if they are, then they're not going to drive effective traffic to your pages, and then you won't convert to a sale. One of the most disheartening things for me is when a publisher or an author says, I want my book to be in the hands of every single person. This book will benefit everyone. That may be the case, but you have to start with a focused audience group. Even in digital marketing, when we do that, we don't start with advertise to the whole world. We start with a target audience. We learn and we expand that audience. We learn, we expand that audience. And that's exactly what we do when what we recommend with keywords. You start with keywords, you develop them, you optimize them, you optimize them, you optimize them. And as you get more data, you keep changing those keywords. And then you have author bios. Authors don't just write content, they have their own platforms too. So list other books that authors have written, list their accomplishments, and really help readers begin to see why they need to trust the author that that you are putting out there. This is also indexed content, so it's going to help your product get in front of people. So again, discoverability and conversion benefits from this particular field. You have the look inside or search inside, depending on what type of book it is. So when you upload your look inside PDF to Amazon, it becomes one of your greatest assets. And the reason that is if you think about someone in a bookstore shopping, they're going to open up the page, they're going to skim the product, they're going to scan, they're going to be looking at the layouts, they're going to be looking at the fonts. Look inside gives you a way for readers to be able to do that. So readers become customers because you give them enough information to make an educated decision on what they want to buy. And the second thing is that content is indexed. So when you upload your PDFs, Amazon is indexing that content and developing keywords out of that to help your product be more discoverable. So really important factors of look inside. Look inside, another thing about that I've found is really helpful is especially in kids book publishing, because you can really begin to show people what's inside of your book and why it's going to be good for them to buy that for their kids. So instead of just saying, hey, we're not going to put any images out there because we don't want to give away too much content, I would really recommend changing that perspective and saying, hey, we're going to put more images. We're going to put more content out here because we really want people to see why this is going to benefit them. Now, I'm not saying give away the whole story, and look inside won't do that either. There's a percentage of your content that they'll show. But ultimately, what I am saying is if people get to your page and there's nothing there to show them why they need to buy your book, then they're going to leave and go buy something else instead. So use those pages, use that tool to your advantage. And then when we talk about merchandising tools even more, you have the ability to improve your discoverability and conversion through your A+ content, through your brand stories, and through your brand storefronts. There are amazing opportunities on Amazon to add more pop to your pages, to educate more on why this resource is going to be available to you. So if we look at some examples of those, this is an A+ content off of a book page. And books are sometimes hard to sell through A+ content because they don't have features, but they are content heavy. I believe from my professional experience, knowing what Amazon does with all of this content, that having A+ content that's a bunch of banner images like this is often a mistake, because ultimately all of this content is indexable for Amazon. So you want to use this content. You want to use this A+ content to really begin taking advantage of giving more to your readers. So you're not repeating the description in A+ content. What you're really doing is adding additional resources that help them see what features are there, what advantages there are, what benefits there are. You can see these are 2 books in a series. We're using cross promotion in the A+ content. And ultimately in that A+ content, what you are seeing is additional tools and resources for you to sell your product. And again, just a reminder, this is indexable. So Amazon is going to develop keywords and search terms for your products based on the content that's here. You'll notice if you're developing A+ content that ultimately what's going to happen is that there's going to be hearing impaired helps now, so that keyword line, that keyword statement that you used to be able to fill out, those tags that you used to be able to put there aren't the same. You can still use those for SEO type work, but ultimately what you want to do is use A+ content, these 5 different modules that are available. You can pick and choose. Amazon has a whole plethora of modules that you can put into here, but ultimately you have to go in and build it into their 5 module template and choose what you want to do, and then develop your imagery, develop your content based on what modules you choose. So you can see in this particular example, we're promoting 2 books, so there are cross promotions happening, but you also get a lot more description about what's going on. And ultimately, what you see here is a comparison chart. And we use this to compare, not really to compare, but really to cross promote and cross sell both of the books in the line. And these links are clickable here. So you're able to then click those links and go to all the pages related to this content. And you can put one A+ page on multiple products if you don't know that already. So ultimately, you're able to then use the same content on multiple pages. So the question came in, can you define A+ content? And I think the most simple definition of A+ content is really additional content that you get to add to your product page as a publisher. If you are selling on Seller Central, you're actually not going to have access to A+ content because Amazon has not made it easy for booksellers to sell their books on Seller Central. And that's really hard. But ultimately, there are other tools and other factors like we've been talking about that you would need to use to really be able to sell your book well. But if you're a vendor, then you have access to A+ content, and then you can go in there and start setting all of this up. But it really is just a tool for you to tell the story of your product better. It's additional content that comes from the publisher. And like I said, don't forget, it's important to use all of these text blocks to your advantage because people are going to be able to discover your book because of what you put there. So these that have all banners are really beautiful and they can work really well, but ultimately they're not going to achieve and maximize the results for selling your books on Amazon. They also have introduced a brand story feature. And ultimately, this is going to be on your product page too. So you'll have your description, and then it'll be from the brand and then from the publisher. A+ content is from the publisher. From the brand is this new band that Amazon has made available to vendors on Vendor Central and Advantage. And ultimately, what you can do here is you can create all of these little modules. These are product listings. They're all clickable. And you can go to these different products, or you can link it to your brand storefront. So then you have your own page designed on Amazon where you can drive people to, but this can be added to every product in a specific brand. So you can have consistent artwork and tell the story of your brand that people need to know. And ultimately, a lot of clickable links here. So you can click to different product pages. You can describe what your new product is about. You can link to your storefront. You can tell the story of your company. There's so much that you can do in this content, and you really have a pretty unlimited number of modules that you can use here. Like I think we used 8 or 10 in this specific brand story with this publisher. So that's an example of that. And then you have your storefront opportunities. If you have an Amazon advertising account, this is not available as a KDP published author or publisher by itself. But if you're using, again, Vendor Central or Amazon Advantage, then you have the ability to go into your Amazon advertising account and you have the ability to build a storefront where you can essentially build a shoppable website for people to use on Amazon. Amazon is now making this indexed content. So you have search engine optimization things that you can do for every single page. And when people start using those search terms to find products, then it will show little blocks of the storefront down at the bottom. It's not happening in every category and it's not happening across the board yet, but I'm definitely seeing those brand storefront links with your logos showing up across the bottom of search results at this point. So use the brand storefront to your advantage to come up in search results. But then when you're doing advertising, you can drive people to this brand storefront, either off Amazon advertising or sponsored brand ad advertising. And it ties back into your brand story because you can put the link to your store right there and people will be able to go to it. Now, if you're using the question that just came in is, are you limited to Amazon internal links or can you share links to your website or social media? In all cases, Amazon will never let you drive people to off Amazon platforms, and they will never let you promote your own social media across the board. So you are limited to on Amazon links on the storefront and on the product pages. And for what it's worth, if you're creating videos and Amazon finds those social links or they find links to your website in those, they'll disapprove your videos as well. So just keep that in mind. But ultimately, you have a lot of opportunities here. You can see this has 4 different categories, and under each category, there are multiple different pages. So you really can build out a website right on Amazon and tell that story how you want. Videos are becoming more and more popular on Amazon as well. Use those to your advantage. Just remember to keep those short, 30 seconds or less. Focus on the features, focus on the benefits. I watched a webinar that was really good that talked about how someone standing in front of a camera and talking is not going to be the best tool that you'll have for selling your books on Amazon. And then ultimately, you want to generate demand for your products. If you don't have demand, as I've already talked about, if you don't have engagement, then your books are going to suffer in sales rankings, and ultimately they're going to suffer in discoverability. So by updating all of these things, you're going to make them more discoverable, but you still need people getting to those pages. You still need people clicking. You still need people engaging. So Amazon advertising allows you to really go where people are already shopping and put your ads in front of them. So they appear in multiple places, including the top of the search list. They also drive demand and impact customer engagement. They utilize keywords to help you drive the right traffic to your ads. And as you optimize your product pages, ultimately your ROAS should increase, because as you get the right content on your pages, Amazon will deliver and develop new keywords and ultimately deliver your ads to different people based on what they're searching. So some ad examples for you. This is a sponsored product ad. This is usually going to look just like a search result list. If you've never seen one of these, maybe you just don't pay attention, but they usually say sponsored right underneath. And ultimately, we want to make sure that you're able to see the products right at the top of the search result list. So sponsored ads make it possible for you to do that. Sponsored product ads also show up on a product detail page. So it might be products related to this item. That could be a sponsored product ad, or it could be people also bought. That could also be a sponsored product ad. So you have opportunities on the page and in the search result list to get your products in front of people with sponsored product ads. You also have a sponsored brand ad. This is going to always appear at the top of the search result list. You can put your logo, you can put some other image, you can input your own copy that's a limited amount of characters, but you can do that. And then you can link it to product listing, or you can link it back to your brand storefront. So you have different options on where you can send that to. Everything on Amazon, but you still have options on where you can link that to. And you can choose the 3 products that you put here. And when you're choosing products, I would remember Prime eligible, in stock, and good reviews. Those are going to be really key things as you drive traffic to these sponsored brand ads. And then you have video ads. So this is an example of a video ad where it's really highlighting the features. And right next to that video ad, you'll be able to see the product listing right next to that. The great thing about video ads is it allows you to tell the story of the products the way that you want to. So you call out the unique things, you make sure people know what they need to know about your products. Keep those videos under 30 seconds, focus on the features. Don't start with a picture of someone, start with the product from square one on your videos, and then make it where the video can loop and it won't really lose any steam. So use those videos to your advantage. We're using these with some customers that we're working with, some publishers, and they are having great success with video ads, a lot higher ROAS when the video is right than a regular sponsored product or sponsored brand ad. Then you have display ads. These are just ads that show up right underneath the buy button really on the product page. The great thing about these is Amazon's giving away a lot of credits right now to people who are advertising because they're focusing on this. So I have publishers that are getting $1,000 in free advertising to use for display ads just because they are they're not using them right now. So if you're getting those credits, your credit amount may be different. I don't know how they're determining how much you get, but if you are getting offers for credits, take advantage of those and try out these new types of ads. At least you get free advertising out of the deal, no matter what. And ultimately build a really good Amazon advertising strategy. So use data to manage and optimize your ads. If you want to maximize your sales on Amazon, you need to be doing advertising. That's just how I'm seeing things work. So start with your automated campaigns and let those campaigns run. Work on optimizing the budget for your maximized return. People will often say, I don't want to just start with an automated campaign. I want high selling ads right out of the bat. If you are 100% certain that you know what keywords are going to work, start with those manual campaigns and let them take off. But if not, start with those automated campaigns, which is my recommendation. Let Amazon develop the keywords, and then you optimize the budget to those keywords, add some negative keyword targeting for words you are seen not making money. And then once you get that ROAS right, start diving into that volume, dive into the volume, sell more books. And once you have a good volume going and you see what's working, start developing manual keyword campaigns where you're focusing on those high return keywords and turning that into a more profitable ad for you. So it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. People will often say, well, I don't want to just start with automated campaigns, but ultimately start with them, work through the process, and you will have a really good strategy for selling and advertising your books. And then link your ads back to your brand storefront. I just got a question that came in about the personal ROAS target range. It really varies. I would always set a target of a minimum of 2.5 ROAS. Because ultimately we know you've got discount factored in, you've got a lot of things going on. At the start of an ad, it might be a little bit lower than that, but start at that 2.5 ROAS. If you're doing ACoS because you're on a different platform than a vendor platform, like a seller platform or KDP, then when you're looking at your ACoS, I think somewhere, below 20% is a really good place to be. But I would say I like to set a floor of 2.5 and make exceptions when necessary. But ultimately, I have publishers that I'm working with that have set targets of 5 and 6 times ROAS. And we're seeing really good profitability from those ads and really good new customers from those ads too. And link those sponsored brands back to your storefront. That's going to be a really important way for you just to raise awareness of your brand and reach new customers that are going to be repeat customers over the years, coming back more and more and more. Ultimately, we want to help you grow. We want to help you maximize your sales, and we want to grow with you. So we love working with publishers. We love providing services for publishers. And ultimately, there's a few takeaways that I want to give you. Just make sure you walk away with these things. Use all of the available tools that Amazon makes available to you. Use quality metadata. Keep it changing. Don't leave it the same for years and years and years and years. If you're doing that, you're probably missing out on opportunities to sell more books. So change your metadata, improve it, optimize it, and then work through your page engagement. Page engagement is going to propel your product to the top of the rankings. So focus on that engagement, generate demand for your product through on Amazon advertising and off Amazon advertising, and do pre-orders, do campaigns before your book releases. Focus on that data as well, and really begin to let the data help you direct your path forward. Going off your gut is always really great, but if you have data to back up your gut, it's going to be even better for you. So we are a full service agency. So if you are looking at all of this and you're saying, I know I need to do these things, I need help, I don't have resources, I don't have the time, I don't have the team, this is obviously a lot. We would love to continue this conversation with you and talk more about things that you can do, and also how we might be able to become an extension of your team and really be a partner for you in the work that you're doing to maximize your sales on Amazon. We have a few minutes left. I've been answering the questions as we've been going, but I would love to just say thank you first and foremost, and ask, what questions do you have today? No questions so far. There were quite a few questions that I tried to answer just naturally as we were going through. So a question just came up. What would be a minimum ad budget? That's a great question. We always try to set a starting point at $150 per book per month. Ultimately, you might be able to spend more, or you might spend less, just depending on how the market's responding to the ad and what's working. But ultimately, I say always start around $150 a month per book. That's a good place to go. Any other questions? Just to let everyone know, while we're waiting for potential questions that come in as well, if you want to continue talking about this and want to do some more face-to-face discussion, we're going to have a little breakout room that'll be available for you right after this is over. You can jump right into there and you'll be able to talk live and even learn from other publishers, because I would love for other people to be in there and talk about their experience as well, and how you might be able to help other publishers in your space be effective. So.
Thank you, Joseph. That was a lot of really great information. Just to make sure everybody understands that we did record this, it will be sent out. Joseph, we really appreciate your knowledge and your time and all the work that you've done to help all of our publishers. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. If you want to be in that breakout room, please look in the chat window. Brendan from our team is actually going to put that on there. So you'll be able to see that chat, that link to get into that breakout room. If you have more questions, you can put them in the question and answer box right now, or you can come over to that breakout room and we can talk more in depth about that. My email is on the screen right now. So if you don't have time to come to the breakout, send me an email. I love just talking to publishers about their work. So no pressure on that. But if you want to talk in person and just have a 30-minute discussion about Amazon work or ask for more clarification, I'd be glad to have that one-on-one discussion with you too. But I hope that you will join us over in the breakout session. Have a great day. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
All right.